In ancient times, the Greeks and then the Romans established trading posts along this coastline, but the French Riviera changed dramatically in the 19th century when it became a popular winter resort, attracting nobility and royalty. The Riviera pandered to the needs of its wealthy visitors, building grand hotels and casinos. The first Cannes Film Festival in 1946 added to the glamorous image of the region. Today, in many people's eyes, the glamour has somewhat faded. But from a culinary point of view, French cooking is still very much respected throughout the world. I must say, this is a spectacular way to see the Mediterranean coast in the back of this, all I can say is rather obscene car. And if Cannes turns out to be as tacky as this vehicle, we're going to be in for a big disappointment or a big fallout with me and the bloke who chose all these things. But hopefully, we're going to get tucked into some wonderful fish dishes, salt cod with garlic mayonnaise, and assiette of fruits de mer, and lobsters and grilled sardines, and all those wonderful things you associate with the coast. If you're planning on having lunch in Cannes, and of course someone else is paying, then the palatial Carlton Hotel is a good bet. Here, Chef Francois Chauveau creates divine dishes that have earned the restaurant a well-deserved 2-star Michelin rating. Merci beaucoup. Well, as you'd expect, it's quite exquisite, but I'll try to describe it to you. There's a fillet of pan-fried, very fresh John Dory, surmounted by little slivers of those tiny purple artichokes, which have been fried till they're slightly crispy, and you can taste the coarse sea salt on it, which is very, very fine. Then the little roasted tomatoes and miniature broad beans and ham, which I suppose will be obviously mountain ham, but probably Spanish. This is really very good. This is definitely the Mediterranean. These little artichokes, the miniature broad beans, the primeur vegetables of the area, the flavors are absolutely exquisite. Merci. Ah. By the way, for those of you who think I lead an extravagant lifestyle, well, the fact is I do. And you ought to know that this meal I'm having, I'm not paying myself, of course, is the sort of a 5-course meal of this quality will cost you around about £60, exclusive of wine. And if the first course is aimed to go by, it's certainly well worth it. This is roasted spring lamb from the loin, from the shoulder, and from the fillet. And the little sauce is just the juices from the roasting process. And here I have a disquette of couscous with almonds and sultanas in it. And on top, aubergines, leeks, carrots, and peppers. I'm a bit ambivalent about this particular dish. The couscous is a little bit salty and a little bit floury. But we'll overlook that. The lamb is exquisite, the vegetables are exquisite, the couscous is not. However, it's important to realise, to get to this level of excellence in cooking, not only do you need to be a really good technician, you also need to be impassioned by the creativity, and you must be very respectful of the ingredients. In other words, an egg must be treated with the same respect as a lobster or a tin of caviar. This passionate respect of raw ingredients is not exclusive to fine chefs. It's reflected throughout French society. As you stroll through any market here, you will see mostly local produce. Each region has its own specialities. In Provence, for example, there are over 100 recipes for the wonderful tomatoes that are grown there. Food shopping in a Mediterranean market in late spring or early summer is an absolute joy. The air is scented with the herbs of Provence, of basil, of fresh mint, of thyme, fennel, bay leaves. There are wonderful things like wild asparagus, which the Romans used to pick this centuries and centuries and centuries ago, and wonderfully freshly potted garden peas. Curiously enough, the Brits like their peas frozen, very seldom eat them fresh. The French like them best in tins because they're cooked with a little bit of lettuce, a little bit of ham, a little bit of olive oil. Incidentally, the French never invented their famous petit pois. It was, in fact, the Italians. They brought it over in the 16th century. The French are, of course, equally passionate about wine, and that's why I've taken the short boat trip from Cannes to the island of Lerins. This has been the site of an abbey since the 5th century. In the past, monks have seen turbulent times. They were obliged to repel the invading Moors during the Middle Ages, and the island was strategically important during the Franco-Spanish Wars of the 16th and 17th centuries. The abbey has been restored several times, most recently in 1868. And the island offers an appropriately tranquil setting for the monks who live here and spend much of their time in prayer or meditation. Visitors come to the island to experience some of that peace and quiet, and to sample some of the rather splendid wines the monks produce. I shared a glass with Father Marie. Alors, vous avez combien d'hectares de vignes à ce moment?
En ce moment, on a 7 hectares de vignes.
7 hectares.
En gros, ça se répartit sur 4 hectares de rouge et 3 hectares de blanc.
Blanc. Et ça rapporte combien de bouteilles dans une bonne année?
Bon, tout n'est pas en rendement encore, mais pour l'instant, on est à 13 000 rouges et 12 000 blancs.
Ah bon, ça fait déjà pas mal.
Ça fait pas mal. On arrivera, je pense, à 25 000 rouges.
Oui.
Et en blanc, on veut maintenir à peu près dans les 15 000.
Oui, 40 000.
Oui, voilà.
Bon, mais à votre santé.
Voilà, à la vôtre.
Chin chin. C'est très intéressant, ça. Là-dedans, si je parle de conneries ou de stupidité, de bêtises, pardon, mais je sens la mer et les pines.
Le pain.
Le pain, là-dedans.
Tout à fait, oui. Le terroir est très marqué.
Le terroir est très marqué, oui.
Oui, très marqué. Oui.
You can really taste the surrounding countryside in this delightful wine. It's worth taking a few bottles back with you when it's time to leave. We're in a very grand kitchen today in the Carlton Casino Club in Cannes, which is a fabulous place to be. They're having a really big night, so we're a real nuisance. But I want to concentrate on some typical Mediterranean food. And the first thing I want to talk about are stuffed tomatoes, stuffed aubergines, and stuffed courgettes. Now, the very first thing I did with the courgettes was to boil them whole for about 20 minutes. Then when they were cool, cut off the lid and scoop out the flesh and put the flesh to one side. Slightly different with the aubergines. Same result, I roasted these dry in a very hot oven, then cut the tops off, scooped out the pulp and put the pulp to one side. Then I got some chicken breast and some lamb collar or lamb leg and seared it very quickly in a pan in olive oil. They're not cooked all the way through, deliberately not. Then, if you'd like to move on down, we chopped up with a knife to maintain the flavors, the chicken very, very finely like that, and the lamb very, very finely like that. Then what we did, we tipped in the chicken and the lamb together. Thank you, Scott. We then fried off some finely chopped mushrooms, finely chopped shallots, garlic and parsley, and we tipped that in there. Then we tipped in the pulp of either the courgette or the aubergine. In this instance, I've got one to finish with the tomato. I've got some little bits of tomato to go in there. So that's our mixture. And also we add to that a little bit of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. Okay, step back a bit, please, Steve. So I now need to just stuff this very last one. That's as simple as that. Okay, then we tip in a bit of chicken stock. Now this has been genuinely made properly by the chefs here for me, but I can assure you a chicken stock cube at home would be okay as long as you don't add salt to any of the things in here. So put some of that in there, like that, and we'll put in a good dollop of olive oil over the whole lot. And then we're going to bake those in a hot oven, okay? But before I do that, thank you, I want to go on to a classic Niçoise fish dish. These are red mullet. I bought them at Cannes Market this morning. They were actually flapping as the fishermen brought them in. They're splendid. On a bed of fennel twigs, and these are dried fennel twigs, with some slices of lemon, with some chopped tomato, and some wonderful sea salt. crunchy, big pieces of crunchy sea salt. We then add, quite simply, a drop of chicken stock again to cover the whole thing, like that. And to get a veritable flavour of the region and to enhance the fennel-flavoured sticks, a little drop of pastis. That too goes into the oven. Now in here I'm cooking potatoes in goose grease until they're nice and golden, and some mushrooms in olive oil with some butter and seasoned with coarse salt, garlic, fresh thyme, and then I'll let it cook for a few minutes. Right, meanwhile, we've reduced the liquor from the red mullet, and now we'll beat in some butter. I've now added the mushrooms, garlic, and thyme to the potatoes. We're going to put these little onions on. Now those onions, you probably can't see them very well, were boiled in a little bit of water, sugar and butter. And now, as they continue cooking on here, the butter and the sugar, the water will evaporate and the butter and sugar will glaze them and they'll turn a golden brown. Now, at this stage, this sauce is nearly ready, so we're going to add a little drop of olive oil to it. Because after all, we are in the south of France. And then we have some olives from Nice, which we put into that. And that'll be the sauce for our fish when we see it as a finely decorated fish. Now, also, Steve, to me, please, at the market today, I got some splendid Welsh spring, beg your pardon, France, a very good French spring lamb. And all I'm going to do to that is a little drop of olive oil in there. And quickly and lightly cook them. Only when they've been seared will I flavour them with a little bit of salt and pepper. Okay. On goes the seasoning of more salt and pepper, and it's all ready to serve up. The luxurious old-fashioned taste of new potatoes and chanterelles and onions cooked in goose fat, and yet the lamb cooked gently in olive oil and flavoured with a herb butter of mint, parsley, chives and basil. Quite exquisite. The colours and the flavours of the stuffed vegetables truly reflect the spirit and the aromas of Provence. Red mullet, the fish of the Mediterranean, olives, grown in the Mediterranean, and basil, one of the finest herbs. In 1848, Monaco faced bankruptcy when the taxes levied on lemons and olives grown in Menton were no longer forthcoming. In desperation, Charles III, the then Prince of Monaco, opened a casino, and the rest, as they say, is history. Covering just 1 square mile, the Principality of Monaco is one of the world's smallest sovereign states after the Vatican. A tax haven, Monaco attracts the famous and the very, very wealthy. Now, you need more than a few quid to stay here for a night. This is the luxurious Hôtel du Paris, reputedly one of the finest hotels in the world. A small suite like this is very comfortable, but it will set you back about £350 a night. You do get a balcony with a view, but the cocktail is an optional extra. Just a quick one before I get to work. Merci bien. I've got a very special chap coming to eat with me today here in Monaco, just a couple of days ahead of the Grand Prix. And I've been asked to cook him something, not fish because it might give him a squeezy stomach, nothing spicy because it might make him sick, so something tasty, simple and quite light. In the pan I've got some wonderful maize-fed chicken frying away in olive oil. Into that I now add a dollop of butter and some garlic. Right. At this stage, I'm going to season it with some very coarse sea salt because it really brings out the flavour after the chicken has been seared. There we are. That's that. Next, over here, in olive oil and butter, I'm going to fry some ceps. Have a look at that ridiculous boat there, Steve. He's going to be doing that all day. As the cameraman quite rightly said, if he lived in Britain, he'd have a F-registered TR3 or something. FR1 or whatever it is. Anyway, some silly car. Right. Now, into our chicken, we add some chicken stock. Whack on the lid and let it simmer for about half an hour. Then we add some morels and some chopped shallots, some ordinary mushrooms, and we let those cook away for about 20 minutes or until the juices naturally occurring in the mushrooms run out. So that's the first part of the Monaco Grand Prix cooking sketch. Brum brum. To finish off the mushroom sauce, I'm adding a knob of butter and some fresh cream. Okay, while that's just cooking itself off, I'd like to show you these vegetables, which are carrots, celery, courgettes, baby turnips, and artichokes and spring onions. And I cooked all of those, me please, Steve, if you would. I cooked all of those in chicken stock individually. And by the time I'd finished cooking, all the chicken stock I had left was this little drop in the pan there. So, I'm going to add some cream to that. And whisk that around. Then we simply tip our vegetables into there now. And just let them warm through. And while that's happening, we just put some fresh spinach. Just the heat of the sauce will cook that spinach. It's a lovely summery dish, isn't it? The chicken, mushroom sauce and vegetables are ready to serve up to my very special guest, Formula One driver, Johnny Herbert. The first most important question I have to ask you, Johnny, is are you allowed to have a drink this close to a race?
Yeah, it's no problem. As long as I have a little drop,
Yeah.
doesn't do any harm. It's good for the blood.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
Great. Now, first of all, you must try my food to see if it's edible or not, because again, we can't have one of the
Certainly will.
racing stars poisoned and unable to win the race this coming weekend.
No, definitely not. Well, hopefully with these mushrooms as well, it gives me a little bit of energy.
Yep. Is diet an important part of your sort of training and fitness and commitment to the whole thing?
It is, because, you know, we don't want to try and have heavy, creamy things normally before the race, just because it takes a long time to digest. So we take our time. But we normally have fish, or I have a lot of chicken normally at a race day, so it's good for me. So.
Now, you look incredibly fit. Do you work out as well?
Not at all.
Not at all. Good man.
No.
Exactly after my own heart.
Well, I'm afraid no. We have to work really hard, because they give you a big pounding when you're driving them. So we need to get as fit as we possibly can.
Right. And fatten up a bit in a way, I suppose.
Yeah, oh, for sure. You know, we do a lot of work. You know, here it's great for me, Monaco, because we start down here, and I have to do all my training on the bicycle, and it's all uphill.
Oh, God, I hate it. When you're sitting on the grid, you must feel awful.
You're very nervous,
Yeah.
for sure. But I think normally, because your concentration's so high and what you've got to do probably in the next 30 or 40 seconds with the lights, you're just focused completely on that, and then you're just oblivious of everything else that's going on. So your concentration is that high, you forget about everything.
Do racing drivers socialise with each other?
Well, again, because of the testing and the racing that we do, normally we see each other more at the races and at the testing than we do when we're back here.
Yeah.
I think where I live in the apartment I'm in, we've got about 4 or 5 drivers living there, but I haven't actually seen one in the car park or anything.
No.
So
But
we
you
always
wouldn't-
miss.
You presumably wouldn't really cross the road to have a pint with one.
There are a couple. Alex Zanardi I get on very well with, and David Coulthard as well. He's a good laugh as well. There's some good guys which are, you know, pretty normal and have a lot of fun outside it.
I'm not sure whether Johnny really enjoyed his lunch, or whether he wanted to get his own back, but he did offer to drive me around the Monaco circuit, albeit at a slightly slower speed than he's used to.
We're coming up. The first corner is amongst that.
Right.
If you can get that.
And how fast should we be going at that point?
Well, we're getting to here, we're getting to about 160, 165.
Yeah.
And then actually around the corner itself. The thing is with this type of track, because it's only used for cars and buses, when we drive around, we actually put a lot of rubber down on the road.
Right.
So the track actually gets quicker and quicker, basically every lap.
Yeah.
So this might start up being maybe a 40 or 50 miles an hour corner, and maybe by Saturday qualifying or even on Sunday, it could actually be probably 6 miles an hour quicker, maybe 10, but it changes a lot.
Yeah.
And this is always the difficulty with this track. So we're at the first corner,
Yeah.
and now we start to climb. And on TV, this doesn't actually look that steep,
No.
but it's pretty steep. Obviously, our cars get up there without a problem. But like this, we're chugging up at the moment.
Yeah.
But as we get up to the top, obviously we're in second gear coming out of the corner. So we go into third, into fourth, into fifth. Maybe this year we'll be getting into sixth, basically at this banner here.
Right.
And now we're actually going to start coming into Casino. Now, actually, as you see, you don't actually see anything until you're actually on top of it.
Oh, right. Oh ho. Johnny didn't quite see the authorised vehicles only sign. This looks a bit dodgy.
Have to speak to them probably.
Bonjour,
Bonjour.
monsieur. Oui, on a. Have we got our ticket with us? Well, a bit of smooth talking and a flash of some permit we were given for filming should sort this out.
That's all the documentation.
Although Keith the soundman doesn't look too confident. It's clearly not our day. We've just been booked for unauthorised entry.
This is absolutely brilliant. We've just been booked not for speeding, with one of the greatest racing drivers in the world.
It's your fault.
Oui.
Yeah, he's going to lock you up now.
And I don't want to be locked up, but if I do get out of this, I'll see you in Spain.